Whoa, let's talk about what many are calling the scandal of the year so far. And we need to ask ourselves this question. Was CAF and Morocco involved in a conspiracy to rig the Afcon 2026 in a way that only Morocco would emerge victorious? Now, in order to determine this, I think we should look at three things. The first being the final itself, the final match itself. The second being the matches that led up to the final that involved Morocco. The third being the nefarious activities, some have said, that surrounded Senegal as they arrived in the capital and the things that happened to them during the tournament that were outside the pitch. Now, before we begin, I'd like for you, please, to like and subscribe. Now, the first thing we should talk about is the nefarious activities that happened to Senegal before they even arrived in Rabat. The first thing is the flight over. They were greeted at the airport by a very hostile crowd, which is not really normal, but it happens. But the crowd was extremely racist. They painted their faces black. They threw bananas at the players, chanting monkey sounds. Africa. The hotel that they were staying in was constantly surrounded by fans, Moroccan fans, that made noise, intimidated the players, again threw bananas at the players, constantly making monkey sounds, very racist behavior. Africa. And then the practice pitch, the Senegalese practice pitch, was right next to the Moroccan practice pitch, like right next to it. So the Moroccans could take a peek anytime they wished to see what tactics was Senegal using or going to use during the final. And some reports have come out saying that they actually did so with recording devices. Africa. And then you look at the fact that Senegalese fans weren't even allowed into the stadium. The stadium has a capacity of 70,000 and Senegal were only given 2,000 tickets. Africa. Wow. And then let's talk about the matches that led up to the final itself. We start with the semi-final against Nigeria, a final which was just bereft of fair refereeing decisions. Every 50-50 decision went towards Morocco and against Nigeria. I mean, there were even phantom throw-ins that when the ball didn't go out, they were given to Morocco. Nigeria likes a free-flowing style type of football. In fact, they were the most attractive team and the favorites in many eyes, to be honest with you, but they were never allowed to play. Any foul that wasn't too egregious was against Nigeria was never given. Anytime a Nigerian player sneezed at a Moroccan player, they were given a foul. The game was very stop and start, which was obviously in favor of Morocco, as they were the more structured team, whereas Nigeria was the more free-flowing, attacking team. And so a stop-start match was obviously going to favor Morocco. And the Nigerian players were very frustrated. And they complained about it, by the way. We look at the quarterfinal. Now, the quarterfinal, in my eyes, was even more egregious. The quarterfinal Cameroon had 3 blatant penalty claims. 3. 2 of them were so obvious it was just mind-boggling how VAR didn't see it. I mean, there was one when Mbeumo was literally kicked. Again, every 50-50 decision went towards Morocco. Cameroon, again, were completely and utterly hard done by. And I don't know how CAF could condone such behavior. And then we look at the first knockout game that Morocco played against Tanzania, where when Morocco leading 1-0, one of the Moroccan players literally pushed down the Tanzanian player in the box. It was very obvious to the crowd and to anyone who was watching. But again, VAR and the referee suddenly were blind and they didn't see anything. So when you collate all these things, in 3-4 matches, every single decision goes towards Morocco. Penalties against Morocco, never given. Fantasy penalties given for Morocco. I mean, it's pretty obvious to see why Senegal, even before they got into the match, were frustrated. And then when you go on to the match itself, the officiating was very one-sided in this match. Almost every decision went against Senegal. And then you look when they scored a legitimate goal, which was disallowed. VAR was not even allowed to be involved. VAR wasn't even involved. I mean, what is the VAR there for if not for this? Senegal scored a legitimate goal. But again, they complained, but they didn't stop the match at this juncture. They carried on playing for 6 minutes. And then, what does CAF and the referees do? They make it very obvious that they want Morocco to win. They award a penalty in the last minute, virtually giving Senegal no recourse, no way to even fight back and play back and score more goals. No way. They gave it in the final minute, and it was a very, very sketchy penalty at best. I mean, if you give a penalty for that, then there should have been 20 penalties during the entire game. In fact, every game in the tournament should have had 3 or 4 or 5 penalties, because that's what defenders do to attackers all the time in the penalty box. So I can understand. I mean, there's no excuse for Senegal to walk off the pitch. There's no excuse in a match of such magnitude just because they didn't like the referee decisions for them to walk off the pitch. But I think when you put together all of the behavior of Morocco, all of the behavior of the referees, all of these things, you can understand, although not justify, but you can understand why the coach put these players off the pitch. Now, by God's grace, literally by God's grace, Ibrahim Diaz decided to do a stupid Penenka penalty and missed. And then Senegal went on to win the match, which I think they deserved. For me, the best team in the tournament was Nigeria, but because of the refs, they never got a chance to play in the final. But if any other team was going to win it, then Senegal should have won it, and I think they deservedly deserved to win it. Which brings me to the point of Morocco. They are very good players. They have Hakimi, Champions League winner. Mazraoui plays for Manchester United. Diaz plays for Real Madrid. And yet, they wanted to win the team through corruption. I mean, you've all seen the clip that's going around the internet where Hakimi and the ball boys are literally attacking, physically assaulting the Senegalese sub-goalkeeper because he wanted to give the towel to Mendy. He fell on the pitch of play. They were abusing this young man, and yet nothing was done about it. So the question is, why cheat? You've got such a good team. You could have won this team legitimately. You could have won this tournament legitimately. And if your team was so concentrating on just actually playing football instead of seeing how they can cheat, they would have won this tournament easily, because you did have a home advantage. I mean, you had no travel. All of Morocco's matches were in Rabat. So I think we collect all the evidence, it's pretty obvious to see that Morocco were cheating. And obviously this cheating was sanctioned by CAF. CAF was obviously bribed. They were obviously bribed. Somebody was paid. They were paid. I mean, the head of referees, by the way, was fired just before the tournament. CAF, I mean, come on, man. The corruption was obvious and is obvious. And now Morocco are the ones that are crying victim, going to court to file a lawsuit. Look, Senegal wrong for going off the pitch, but the corruption is too blatant. So let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you agree that Senegal was cheated, or if you believe that all this was just a coincidence.